Welcome everyone to today's Meet the Experts. Today's topic is a new topic we are trying to introduce into the mix here, and this is about reducing the impact of point-to-point integrations in your Power Center deployments that have been going on for a while. And we're going to do a deep dive discussion and a deep dive demo as well with our product experts who've joined me here. So I have two very proficient product experts who've been working on this technology and are Power Center experts for a long time at Informatica. Gentlemen, why don't you introduce yourselves? Jeff, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, Ash. My name is Jeff Haley. I'm one of the domain experts responsible for the solutions under Data Exchange, including Data Integration Hub.
Excellent. And Amit?
Sure, thanks, Ash. My name is Amit Vaswani, and I'm a product specialist focusing on our B2B Data Exchange and Data Integration Hub solutions.
Excellent. Thanks, Amit. Thanks, Jeff. So before we get started, this is a very interesting topic, and I know you have a lot of great information to share. I just want to level set. I do this in every Meet the Experts just so we know what we are talking about. So as you know, in the early part of this year, we had launched or we had introduced PowerCenter 9.6, version 9.6, as part of the Informatica platform. We introduced one more new addition to the PowerCenter family called the Premium Edition. So you do still have the Standard Edition, which allows you to jumpstart your data integration projects. We have added in capabilities around basic profiling and rapid prototyping. In short, it is the capability to allow the analyst and the developer to work in tandem, to work together, to iterate and prototype, and then deploy the prototype that is approved by the business, approved by the analyst, into production. So this jumpstarts your data integration projects. I mean, we've seen customers doing their data integration projects about 5 times faster. So that's the Standard Edition. The one above that is the Advanced Edition, where you look to support more volume or more number of users or more number of projects, and you hence need a little bit more of the capabilities to scale your throughput and also deliver zero downtime while delivering business insight into your critical business processes. So that's around advanced scaling capabilities, which we covered in a prior Meet the Experts, along with the metadata management and business glossary. And in the Premium Edition, this is more about, my workflows have been running for the longest time, but they're truly not committing any data, or, how do I do data validation testing? All this provides you with a lot more operational confidence in your critical business processes. So that's the Premium Edition. The next week is going to be focused on both data validation testing and proactive monitoring. So where does the Data Integration Hub fit in? Where does today's capability fit in? Actually across the board and across every single Power Center deployment that you may have, regardless of the edition, but as long as you have a mature a deployment which you've been using for a while. So Jeff, paint the context for me here. I mean, when we say mature Power Center deployments, I mean, first, why are we even talking about this topic? I mean, what exactly is happening around the complexity that comes up with having a data integration deployment for a while?
Well, Ash, what we typically see is that these integrations kind of build over time, and I'll go through in the next slide sort of a whiteboard approach of how this happens. But one of the things that we do is we like to talk to our customers, understand what's going on in their environments, and see what their feedback is. And what we found in these running these surveys is that there's a common thread that these integrations are actually getting out of control. So they've got an existing, for instance, they have an existing Power Center environment. They start out with a few small jobs. They start integrating to other systems and pulling application information from different sources and different targets, and they start to grow over time and expand and really become a mess. And that sort of leads into the next slide that I wanted to discuss here, and that is just the overall mess that starts to begin. So typically what happens is we start out with some applications in the organization that are focused around CRM and ERP and finance. And as we start to build those out, then we have the need to store data from these applications. So you have operational data stores for sales environment. You have an enterprise data warehouse that everybody pulls information off of for reporting. Then you build specific data marts that are used across the organization to for different reporting and analytics needs. Next we kind of span outside the firewall, and we get into cloud technologies, we get into different standards and different protocols outside the firewall, and then comes the more complex transformation. So we've got all different kinds of file formats, we've got all kinds of industry standards, unstructured data like PDF, Word documents, things like that. And now, the firestorm starts. All the data's flying all over the organization. This just starts building that bigger mess that we were talking about in the beginning. So we've got complex transformation that then turns into a lot of people involved, a lot of process involved. We've got to validate where the data is, where it's coming from. You start lacking reuse across the organization, that kind of thing. And in the end, it's really about cost and the time consumption along with that process. And we like to refer to this, and as everybody that's been in the industry in a long time, but we certainly didn't coin this phrase, but it's really the life cycle of the hairball, right?
I love that little explanation of the hairball, and there you go. I love that little cartoon as well. That's that little cat coughing up on hairballs. What when you and I spoke last time, you mentioned it. There's this kind of a situation. I mean, it's not about an architecture; it's about the lack of an architecture. What do you mean by this?
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to, we start small, right? Organizations start small with small projects. They bring something like Informatica PowerCe into their environment, and they do some smaller ETL jobs, and they realize how valuable it is to the organization and how great it works, and they start expanding that footprint within the organization. And different groups have different needs, and they start building out their own solutions. And after a while, your interfaces get out of control. They're really hard to maintain in terms of, some kind of reuse across the organization, some kind of best practices. And to optimize that, it really gets to be difficult because you might have multiple organizations using that environment. And of course, in some cases where you still have homegrown applications, you start to hire more and more people, and it just gets out of control. So I think the term lack of architecture is just that it's not a planned event to get this out of control would be my take.
Okay, great. I understand that. Okay, that's great.
So there's one question here about, sorry, Ash, there's one question here about importing from other ETL tools. And that's certainly a capability we have, and it's really on a case-by-case basis. A lot of what we focus on is just pure, on the more technical side as an XML-type format. So there's probably a good opportunity to import, and we've done it in the past of other ETL tools. So we could take that offline and drill into that deeper, but it's definitely something that we could do.
Excellent. I was just going to ask you that question. So that came up from the audience. So just a note to the audience, please feel free to type in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll make sure that the product experts are able to answer them as we go along. All right, all yours, Jeff, please continue.
Yeah, so again, to what the industry analysts are saying today, that the answer for that quote-unquote lack of architecture to clean up this hairball is really a hub-and-spoke approach. It's beginning to be a preferred architecture within the industry. You're starting to see them talking about it more and more. Again, because I assume that most of our people on the phone today are PowerCe users, the easy to learn, design, and maintain, this is all based on what you do today in PowerCe. So you'll see when Amit talks about topics and things like that, that the process under the covers would be just a PowerCe execution. So that's all reasonable in terms of skills and in terms of technology. The scaling and performance is all what you purchased PowerCe for in the first place. This is where we really thrive. So, being able to reuse, to be able to standardize, to be able to utilize best practices that you already have in place really gives you a solid infrastructure for a hub and spoke architecture like we're defining today. So a little bit about the capabilities and values. What we provide here is actually a persistence layer that allows you to store the information that you would then use as the topics for the integration to the back-end applications. This is where you're easily able to publish the data that is built and stored for the the downstream applications. We have a data management layer where you're able to centralize this data for data validation, for using data quality, and the other important parts of the platform that we integrate very well to, obviously, because there are solutions. So this allows you to do things like data quality, data masking, all that as part of that data management layer. In terms of the interaction management layer, this is really the heart of the data integration hub. This is where you as a customer can actually create these publications and manage these publications, and the business can then be provided with a self-service model to get the information they need for their back-end application. And then finally, the monitoring and controlling, you're able to see then what is actually been deployed in terms of the publications and what's being consumed. And if you have multiple subscribers to the information, you can see that they have gotten their subscription fulfilled, and when they've gotten it fulfilled, what type of errors they have. And these are all things that Amit will go into in real detail as part of the demonstration itself.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to seeing this live.
So in terms of value, really what we're talking about here is the amount of cost and the complexity and the risk. We want to reduce the effects of that, and we want to simplify the overall environment. So, our customers see value from the hub because it directly reduces these costs and the risk of failure, and it reduces that point-to-point integration where you may see redundant workflows. And I think as existing PowerCenter users, that's where you see a lot of value in the solution. We want to simplify the overall environment with the data being delivered at the right time so business analysts can get self-service to that data. And as you know, with PowerCenter, we have metadata management. So you have that visibility in terms of lineage, as well as the visibility that I mentioned earlier in the monitoring of the solution. So it goes a long way in terms of what you can see about the process where some may fall short.
What I'm gaining from all this is that this architecture kind of overlays what people already have, what customers already have. It's a complementary approach, correct?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So, typically you'll see customers asking, can we reuse the capabilities that we have in PowerCenter? And you can. And again, Amit can talk to that in a little bit more detail, but basically, it's going to be what we would show in the interface as a custom workflow versus an automated workflow. And it's custom meaning you've already built it out. So it's very easy to do those things. Sorry about that. So, if we look at the types of projects that we actually support, across the platform, this is just some examples of, use cases, if you will. So in the master data management use case, you often need to be able to synchronize a golden record from one application to another, and you may do that across multiple applications, which is a typical use case. So the Data Integration Hub can play that main component within that architecture to say, okay, when I have, depending on your industry, whether you're a healthcare industry or a financial industry, or whether you have customers, suppliers, patients, providers, it doesn't matter in terms of MDM and the types of data that supports. The Data Integration Hub can layer over top of that very nicely to act as that main integration point for all the applications that sync up with MDM. So that's one approach. Another thing is looking at it from a perspective of data broker for analytics. If you need to push data from applications, across divisions or across departments, to different data warehouses, data warehouses and data marts, this may, in some environments, require hundreds of integrations, where in this case, it's one main integration that people subscribe to. We talk about SOA and EAI and ESB complements. Typically what you see in that type of environment is, for me, it's four primary components. You see single compact transactions in an ESB environment, which in the DIH environment, you can do very large batches. Another thing you can look for is the mixed latency capabilities, real-time versus mixed latency. So again, in ESB, it's all real-time, And in DIH, you can do a mixture of near real time and batch, and sort of whatever the application requires, you can get that data delivered in that time. And we talked about two other key components already, and that's the self-service component of the data integration hub versus IT having to every time go and build a new interface and provide that information for the environment. And again, then the reuse across the platform in terms of data quality and the rest of the platform itself. So in terms of return on investment, we see across different enterprises a number of different return capabilities, right? So in the larger environments or enterprises, you can typically see hundreds of interfaces that cost typically over $100,000. So one of the things in the earlier slides was, most companies are taking anywhere from 30 days to 90 days to onboard new data and new integration interfaces. So, this actually requires a lot of cost, and a lot of industries, it requires more than 60 days to satisfy all these requests. So across the board, we're really looking at a large amount of savings where the money you need to spend, you'll see a return much quicker in this environment.
Right. I mean, when we've spoken to a couple of customers together, Jeff and Amit, I think the way we talk about this is a very simple question and answer, like, how many point-to-point interfaces do you have? How much does it cost to actually build a new one, and how long does it take to actually develop one? So I think those three, if someone were to ask themselves those three simple questions, I think that would get them to a point where maybe there's a need for considering an architecture like this.
Good point, Ash. Thanks.
We have a question coming up from the audience here. So if we currently use PowerCenter for ETL or data integration, do we need to rewrite all our mappings to run in the data integration hub?
Okay,
no,
this is Amit.
Okay.
So sorry, Jeff, if you're answering, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is Amit. So the answer is you do not have to rewrite. You would have most of your logic is going to stay the same. There would have to be very minor modification, but about 95% of what you've written is definitely something that can be reused. And I'm going to show some of that when we get into the live demonstration as well.
Okay.
Okay, so if there's no other questions on what I presented in the front end here, I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Amit to go ahead and take over the presentation.
Amit, you have the ball, so I'll let you know as soon as I see your screen. Okay, I see your screen now. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. All right, so before I get into the live product demonstration, I just wanted to give some context around the use case that I'm going to be covering over here. So in this particular scenario, what I'm going to be showing you all is that we have multiple systems that are set up and connected to the data integration hub. And I'm going to walk you all through the process of connecting these different enterprise applications. What we're going to start off with is that we have a CRM system. And really for the purpose of this demonstration, the CRM system is a database, but the use case here is that the CRM system contains information about customers and orders. So throughout the day, you have customers going in and customer service reps going in and placing orders in the CRM system, right? So that information, and there are other downstream applications that require this information. So the CRM system is set up to publish data about customers and orders to the data integration hub about 4 times a day. We then have a finance application that needs this information about customers and orders because it's calculating the revenue generated per customer and things like that. But the finance application doesn't quite care how many times this information is published out to the hub. The finance application just wants this information at the end of the day. So this could be published out 4 times a day, 8 times a day, it doesn't matter. It wants this information at the end of the day, and it's going to consume that information and do its work at that time, okay? We also have another application which is a sales operational data store, which does want the information as soon as it is published out. So if this data is published out 4 times a day, it's going to consume this information every time as soon as it is published out. So what we're actually trying to show over here is that I have a source system that's publishing data out, and then I have multiple applications that could consume that data, but they can pick and choose the latency of when they want to consume it. So they can pick and choose when they want to consume this information. And then we're going to talk about some more complex use cases, like if you have existing power center mappings or if you want to do some complex transformations, we're going to talk about those scenarios as well. So in the demonstration, I'm going to follow these steps. I'm going to start off with creating a topic. So what I mean by that is, on the previous slide, we saw these different applications that are connected to the hub. And we said they're going to publish customer data and order data. So what is it about a customer and order that's being published to the hub? And then what is it that these downstream systems are consuming too? What about a customer? First name, last name, address, city, state, zip, anything else like, credit card number, things like that. So what are the attributes, right? We need to first define that in the hub. That's what we call topics, right? So what is where data is being published to and where it is being subscribed from? That's what we call topics. The second step, we're actually going to walk through the onboarding process. So we're going to see how these different applications start connecting onto the hub. We're then actually going to run something, and we're going to monitor, and we're going to see what happens when there are errors. What does it take to monitor? So you could have one application publishing, and you could have n number of applications subscribing. So what if some of them succeed, failed? How do we handle all those things? We're then going to talk about some custom scenarios. And finally, we'll talk about the breadth of connectivity, right? So, this is a simple demonstration, but then there is no limit to the type of systems that we can connect to, cloud applications, mainframes, or whatever else. So we'll talk about some of that. So with that, I'll go straight into, give me a second here, and I'll go straight into the product demonstration. So what you're looking at on your screen right now is the data integration hub, and this is what we call the data integration hub operation console. Okay, so I'm going to go and log in. This is a web-based interface, and I'm going to go ahead and log in as user administrator. But just a quick note over here: I'm logging in as administrator to give you a view of the entire tool. Different use, you can set up users and roles. You can even set up users and roles of LDAP. And if we have time, I will cover that topic. But just a quick note that it is possible to set up users and roles and all of that. Okay. So as I log into this interface, on the left-hand side we have a navigation bar, and the first thing that I'm trying to do over here is I'm trying to configure the hub. So we are going to define what we call topics earlier, right? We are going to define what is it that's being published to the hub and what is it that's being subscribed to. So customers and orders. What is it of a customer and order that's being published and subscribed to? So I come to this section called topics, and out here there's a section called new topic, which opens up a wizard, and I can start defining my topic. Okay, so I already have some topics that are predefined over, and I'll just walk you through that. So I clicked on the customer's topic. So the first thing is to give it a name, and I'm just going to call it a customer's topic. The next is it asks me to define the structure of the topic. Okay, so and to define the structure of the topic, we have 3 options. So I clicked on the add button. We have 3 options. So I could have this customer's topic. What are the contents of a customer? First name, last, what is the layout? I could already have that defined in a set of database tables, or if I modeled it somewhere, you can put it in a set of database tables, and we can point to that. The second option is to configure it manually. So manually, as in you go in and in the form on this wizard itself, I can start keying in that information. Now the third option, it says based on a workflow definition file, and what that means is that you may have an existing Power Center mapping that already does this work, but really in Power Center it's source to target. We are going to the hub. So we need to define that in-between thing called the topic. And I want to define a topic based on what's already there in my mapping. I want to replicate what my source or my Power Center source or my target is. And I can do that. I can just point it to a Power Center mapping and it will define the topic for me. So these are the 3 options. So in this case, for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to point to an existing set of database tables. We'll go next. And now, out here, I can go ahead and define my database connection. So I can enter all my connection parameters and everything, and I already have a connection name predefined over here, but essentially out here you go point to your database. Once you point to your database, it will connect to your database and say, here are your list of available tables. And let's say I want to define my customer based off what's there in this customer table. So I can choose that, and now it's going to define my topic. So out here it says, here's what a customer topic is going to look like. You have a party ID, which is a double, you have name, address, city, state, country, zip, things like that, right? So this is what the topic is. Now when we go next, it's asking me for a data retention period. And I'm going to come back to this, it'll get clearer when I actually run something, but the point over here, what this means is that you have applications that are going to publish to this topic, and you have applications that are going to subscribe from this topic. And we had said that different applications can subscribe whenever they choose to. So one can do end of the day, another one can do after 2 hours, another one can do after, how much ever time they want to. Once every application has successfully subscribed to the data from the topic, we do not need to retain that data anymore. So we want to purge it and free up space. So in this example, it says 7 days after every application is successfully consumed, purge it and free up space. Okay?
So Amit,
that's
this is Jeff.
Sure.
I have a question on this particular area. This is the information that we store about the publication and subscription, correct? It's not a full archive of all the data, or can you explain a little bit more what that is?
Yeah, so the topic really is the definition. So, as you proceed in the publication and subscription, this is what tells you, like, here are the different attributes that you have available to you, right? So, so these are the different attributes that you have available that you can consume. So if you're a subscriber and you're looking at the customer topic, and that's something I'm going to show you later, but you can see here are the different attributes of a customer I'm going to get, and you can even pick and choose what attributes you want, right? Also, when I publish something out, the data gets persisted in this topic, right? The data gets, so it's behind the scenes in the repository, it's a set of tables. The data gets persisted there, right? And then, after everyone has consumed that data, we don't need it anymore, so we're just going to purge it, okay? Now, we are going to have archiving. If you want to archive it, that capability is coming, but for now, we just have the ability to purge the data, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So now once I've defined the topic and I hit finish, it's actually going to now register that topic within the hub. So behind the scenes, there's the data integration hub repository where this is set up, and it's going to register that topic. So now I can have applications pub and sub to this. Now, just in the interest of time, in terms of setting up the orders topic, it's essentially the same thing that we just went through. So I'm not going to spend time here. The only thing I want to point out is that you can point to multiple tables too. So an order could be an order header and order details, right? So I could have a topic which points to multiple tables, header and the details, okay? So now, once I've defined my topic, now I'm ready to start to onboard applications that can publish or subscribe from this topic, right? So now I'm the finance application. I'm going to log in over here, right? And once I log in, I'm going to come in, and first thing I'm going to do is go to this section called applications, okay? And under applications, we have the option to create a new application. So I'm going to create a new application called CRM system. So in this case, what I need to do is, like we had seen in the slide, we have the CRM system that's publishing data about customers and orders. So I'm letting the data integration hub know that I have this application called the CRM system, okay? Now there are multiple tabs over here, publications and subscriptions. So now the CRM system is going to publish data. We need to tell the data integration hub that the CRM system is going to publish data about customers to the hub. So I'll go over to the publications tab and go into the new publication wizard. This is what registers a new publication, okay? So when I register a new publication, and I already have a publication predefined, so I'll just walk through this predefined screen. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm going to, again, give my publication a name. I'll call it customers, and I'll say I'm going to publish data on to the customer's topic. So this was a topic that we had defined earlier, right? And I'm going to publish data onto this topic. The next thing is it's asking me for a mapping. What this means is that when I say publish data from the CRM system to the data integration hub topic, I'm essentially talking about extracting data from the CRM system and then loading it to the topic, to the DIH topic, right? In this case, and I have two options here. In this case, my CRM system is a database for this example, and the structure of the customers table pretty much matches what's there in the topic. So it's like a one-to-one mapping and everything. And I don't want to have to actually create a Power Center mapping to do that, right? So I'm just going to say generate one for me, and this is what the automatic mapping will do. It says just go ahead and generate a mapping. If you want to do something more like, if you have an existing Power Center mapping, or you want to do some joins and some complex stuff in there, aggregation, whatever, you can choose the custom mapping option. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to choose automatic mapping, and I'll continue on. And now it asks me, what is your source? Because, okay, I've chosen the option for automatic mapping, but how do I connect to the CRM system, right? So I'm going to say my source is a database, right? And I'm going to, again, come in here and set up a connection to my database. In this case, the CRM system is a database. I'm going to enter the username, password, server connections, everything, and then point to it, okay? The next step is it's going to ask me, how frequently do you want to publish this data out? And I will choose the option to say publish it daily, or publish it hourly, and publish it every 6 hours. Now you have the option to publish it every few minutes, you publish it every few weeks, every few months, whatever. So you can choose the frequency of how frequently you want to publish this information out. And I'll go next. So now when you hit finish, it's going to do the following thing. It's going to register the publication. So the Data Integration Hub knows that the CRM system is going to publish data about customers. It's because I chose automatic mapping, it's going to, in Power Center, it's going to generate that mapping that extracts data from the customers table of the CRM system and writes it to the customer's topic, and it is going to schedule that mapping to run every 6 hours. That's what it's going to do, okay? So that's what is involved in setting up a publication. Now, similar for orders, again, I'm not going to go through that. It's the same set of steps for orders as well. Now, let's say I'm a subscriber. Now I'm the finance applicant. On the other side, we had spoken about the finance application is going to consume, needs to consume this data at the end of the day, right? So I'm the finance application, and I need to register a subscription. So the finance application logs in, comes in, and you come into the catalog, and you view a list of available topics. So in this scenario, we just have 3 topics, but you can have as many more topics, so you can come and search on that as well, right? So as the owner of the finance application, I look at the customer, I say, there's this topic called customers. This kind of looks like what I want to subscribe to. So I need some more details. So if I click on the details, and I can view, like, here is the content of the customer topic. Here are all the different attributes that I can subscribe to, right? And this is also great, but I have one more requirement here. As the owner of the finance application, I just want customers that are active. So what's being published out, whoever's publishing the information, they're publishing information about customers, always. I just want customers that are active. So it looks like there's an attribute over here called status, and maybe I can filter off that attribute, okay? So that looks good. Now I can come in and I can start subscribing. So just on this section over here, I'll launch into the subscription wizard, which is similar to what we saw before for publications. We now have a subscription wizard, right? And
I'll go into the subscription. I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but before you go into the subscription, the steps that you've done thus far, can you describe who would be doing these steps? Would it be a developer or a business owner as far as the publication setup goes?
So in terms of the configuration of the publications and the subscriptions, that's typically done by a business analyst, right? So what they're talking about over here is it's a self-service interface. So it would really be the owner of someone who knows about the finance application, who knows about the CRM system, is the person who would be setting up these publications and subscriptions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So now, as I'm looking at the subscription, right, I'll come in over and I'll say that my source application is the finance, right? And now I'm already going to subscribe to that, so I'm going to just go ahead and give a name to my topic over here, right? And now give a name to my subscription. And now again, I don't want to have to create a Power Center mapping. I'm just going to choose the automatic mapping option, right? And I'll go next. And now I can point. So again, I can set up, if my target's a database or file, I can go and point to that, set up my point, a point to what my application is. Now the next is, like I said, I'm the finance application, and I only want to make sure that I'm always getting customers that are active, okay? So I can come in over here and add a filter condition, and I can filter by customers, filter by status, where the status is equal to A, or active, or, essentially put in the filter condition over here, however the status is defined, right? Also, I may have a requirement where I can say, there's a lot of information that's coming in about customers. I don't care for all of this, All that I may really care for is just the party ID, name, address, city, state, and that's it, right? So you can pick and choose what attributes of the topic you want to subscribe to, and then you can also put filters in there, right? And now I'll go next, and now I can pick up the frequency. I can say either I'm going to subscribe to this as soon as the information is published out, or I just care for this information at a certain time of the day, right? So it can be published at 4 times. I'm just going to take that certain time of the day, or I can even have this triggered off through an external trigger or through a, I can pretty much kick off the subscription on demand, right? And then the next option is my delivery option. So if I'm going to pick it up, if I have something that's being published out 4 times a day, I'm picking this up only at the end of the day. Do I want everything? Do I just want the latest data set that was published out? Do I want an aggregate? So you can pick and choose those options, right? And then finally, you hit finish. And on hitting finish, it's going to follow the same steps as we did for publication. That is going to register the subscription. It's going to generate a mapping, and it's actually going to generate a Power Center mapping with a filter condition in there because we had defined that filter condition. And it's going to schedule it to run. So the DIH knows when a publication for customers came in, and it's going to trigger off the subscription when that came, right? So that's essentially how you would go ahead and set up subscriptions, okay? A quick note over here, and we did cover, we did touch upon the fact that, we can use custom mappings, but if you have an existing Power Center mapping, right? So if I already have an existing Power Center mapping that does some stuff like joins and aggregates and whatever else, right? And if I want to run that in the hub, essentially I can take this mapping, repurpose it to point to my hub topics because that's available in my Power Center metadata repository. I can repurpose it and point to those topics. I would then take that mapping, I would export it out, and then in the data integration hub, I would set up my set of workflows over here, right? And then when I'm setting up my subscriptions, right, I can come in over here and I'll show you a subscription that's already predefined here, right, where I can say instead of the automatic mapping option, I'm just going to choose a custom mapping option, right? And in the custom mapping option, I'm just going to point to the specific workflow, and then continue on, right? So, so that essentially is a way of setting up subscriptions, right? And the key thing to note over here is the topic is what gives you the delineation, right? So I can have one publisher and I can set up as many subscribers as I want, okay? So now that I've set up my publishers and subscribers, let's actually run something and see what happens, okay? So, so now I'm going to come in over here and, I'm just going to kick off a process manually. So I'm just going to kick off a process where I'm going to fire off a publication of customers and fire off a publication of orders, right? So now, if I want to see what exactly is going on in my system, right? So a publication fired off, 2 publications fired. I want to see what exactly is going on in my system. I can come in over here and pull up a list of events, right? So what this is telling me is that, at 12:42, that's the time over here, information about customers was published out, okay? And there were about 756 customers that were published out. So the event status says complete, right? Now, so the event status over here about customers said complete. Now, notice that there's a consumption status, right? And the consumption status is error. What this means is that I have, although the publication was successful, I have one or many subscribers that have failed. And if I want to see the status of my subscribers or the status of everyone that has subscribed to this, I can come in over here and drill down. It's showing me that there are 4 subscribers to that particular event, okay? And it looks like the sales data mart has failed. These 3 are completed, the sales data mart has failed. So now I can come in over here, drill down, investigate into the error message, right? This is an error coming from your Power Center workflow. So you can, this is a high-level error message. You can do your further root cause analysis. But the key point to note over here, in this example, I'm showing you 4 subscribers and 1 failed. By just clicking, I was able to go and see what succeeded and what failed. Envision a scenario where you have 10 subscribers and 6 succeeded and 4 failed, or 7 succeeded, 3 failed. How do I know that? How do I know what succeeded and failed? It could end up taking hours and hours drilling through session logs to find that information. But this is telling you right over here what is the overall status, okay? And if you have resolved the error, you can come in and you can reprocess the subscription only for the ones that failed without impacting the ones that completed. So I can just resend the data to the, if I know that, okay, there was a connection problem or something went wrong, I can reprocess it only to the ones that failed, okay? So that's essentially what the monitoring interface does. And, you know, out here, this is a searchable interface. So you can search by a lot of attributes, a lot of statuses. So, you know, in a real world, there's a lot of activity going back and forth, right? So you can search by, filter out by time frames and things like that, right? The other key thing to note over here is that all of this information about publication, successes, failures, and all of that, it all gets rolled up to a dashboard interface. So in the dashboard interface, right, it's out here, it's showing you that, you know, over a certain time frame, right, what is the overall health of your system, right? So these are reports that come out of the box. And it's telling me that the top 10 culprits, it looks like the sales data mart has got like, it seems to be the biggest culprit. And I can drill down and go back to my events list and see what were the errors coming in from the sales data mart, right? So, and there are a list of out-of-the-box reports, and you can custom build your own reports by pointing to a repository as well, right? So that's essentially the dashboard interface, okay? And then one other point that I did want to make about publication and subscriptions is that, you know, once everything succeeds, so I spoke about the error use case, but notice that over here, for orders, this consumption status is marked as final. What that means is that every subscriber has successfully consumed the data. And so what that means is that, you know, going back to the previous point when I set up topics and I said retain the data for 7 days, 7 days from now, all the data, that is, there are about 531 orders that came in, all the data relevant to this publication will be purged out because my consumption status was set to final. Note that the data relevant to this one will not be purged out because it's an error. So it's not going to be purged out until all the errors have been fixed, okay? So that's the other point I wanted to make, okay? Finally, behind the scenes, we had spoken about the fact, we had spoken about custom mappings. We went over that, and we said that we can run any Power Center mapping. By virtue of being able to essentially onboard any Power Center mapping, we can use any Power Center connector. So I could have any of these connectors. I could have a Teradata source, I could have a mainframe source, I could have a JMS source, a SQL Server, NQ series, the whole list of connectors that we have. Any of these applications can either publish data to the hub or subscribe to data from the hub, okay? So it's pretty much, we have a wide variety of connectors, and, you know, whether these are batch applications, databases, mainframes, queues, we can, all of those can essentially connect to the hub, even cloud applications. So there's no limit to what we can do, okay? So with that, that's all I really had for the demonstration, right? So with that, I'm just going to come back and, you know, quickly summarize what we just covered over here. So what we had started off was, you know, step 1 was setting up topics. That is how applications would publish and subscribe to data from the hub. So set up the central topic. We then went through the onboarding of applications. We then went through the monitoring, so being able to monitor and view information. And I think the key value there is that, you know, you can monitor today through session logs and everything, but it right away tells you what succeeded, what failed. It saves you a lot of time to kind of find what are the numbers succeeded, number failed, things like that. We went through some custom scenarios, and then we talked about the breadth of connectivity as well. So that's all I really had to show in terms of a demonstration. So I can take any of the questions now, Ash, if there are any.
So Amit, I have one question that I'd like to just sort of clarify, I guess, and that is, if customers have existing Power Center applications today, mappings and processes today, the Data Integration Hub, we're trying to clean up the hairball that we talked about in the very beginning. So what you described here, as I understand it, is when you're creating these publications and topics, this is taking those publication and topics from any of those connections that you talked about and providing it to all the back-end applications typically with one or two mappings, where in today's environment they would do a point-to-point solution more than likely from one application to another, which would mean multiple mappings to do that. Is that a fair analogy?
Yes. So that is a fair analogy. And another concern there is that with existing point-to-point mappings, if I take a mapping from a source system, right, which has got, say, customer data, for example, and I want to send it to an operational data store, that's one feed from the customer table. Now, if I'm sending the same thing to a warehouse, that's another feed. If I'm sending it to MDM Hub, that's another feed. So as many of our mappings, those many of our same feeds from the same table, right? So what could end up happening is that you could end up a lot of redundant feeds from the same source, and you could end up putting unnecessary load on your source system, and it could impact the business. It could slow down your system. What we're also doing over here is that now we just have one feed. Customer data publishes to the hub, and then whoever wants information can consume that information from the hub. You're not really impacting your source, your business critical systems at all. So it kind of decouples. You don't have to go all the way to your source system and request for that information. So.
Great, thank you.
So I do see this other question. Is there a connector available to publish Oracle-based XBRL documents? So really to handle XBRL, it would be, we use Oracle, so we have a connector to Oracle, right? That's a native connector. And then to handle XBRL, we have XML parsing capabilities within the Power Center/DIH. So you would actually read it as a binary and then parse out the XBRL within the mapping.
Okay. So there was this question that came up again. So please clarify a little bit more. What's the difference between this architecture and an ESP? That's been asked again. I know you covered it.
Sure. So really the one key point, an ESP is built to handle large volume, but the transactions, small transactions. ESP is built to handle small transactions in large volume, right? The difference is that an ESP handles the routing. It's got a broker. It handles the routing of data to different applications. The difference is that the data integration hub, the focus of the data integration hub is to handle large volume and large transactions. So large data sets, batch as well as near real time, extremely large data sets can be handled, it's built for the data integration hub to handle. And the data integration hub is more complementary to an ESP. An example could be, and this is from a real life scenario where, let's say you're updating customer data, right, on a web page, and in real time, you want that information synchronized at that instant to multiple downstream systems, right? An ESP could handle that very well, right? But now let's say I have an external agent that needs this feed of customer data, and it's got to be in batch mode, right? So now if you try to batch up millions and millions of changes and try to run it through an ESP is not going to be able to handle that. And the use case is that the data integration hub would listen to the ESP. In real time, as the changes are happening, the data integration hub can queue up those changes in its persistence layer. And then at the end of the day, anything that requires a feed of that can subscribe to that information from the DIH. So the key difference here is it can handle large transactions and in batch and near real time, whereas an ESP is really small transactions.
Jeff, any other questions that you're seeing? Again, please feel free to type in your questions in the chat box or the Q&A box.
So I'm seeing another question over here. Do we have custom roles for users in Power Center? That is developer, administrator, operator. So the answer is yes. So there are some roles that are there out of the box, right? So that are predefined, and then you can define your own roles and users and groups as well within Power Center.
Are there any other questions coming up? So just so everyone knows, I mean, this is in a very short time, we've tried to show some important capabilities of the Data Integration Hub, but please feel free to drop us a note. We are happy to have a deeper dive and also set up a separate time for you. Any other questions you're seeing here, Amit?
Yeah, so one of the questions that I'm seeing is it says when a subscriber fails and after the error fix and rerun, will it rerun only for the snapshot as of when it failed? And then there might be new data published by the time the error was fixed. So, so you have the option to, so by default, it will rerun only for the snapshot, but you do have one of your options, and if I don't know if you noticed that, but there's a section called delivery. So you can choose an aggregated delivery, which means that even if I rerun it, and if by the time more data came in, it will make sure that the aggregated and the new data, new updated information will also be consumed.
Okay, great. So there are a lot of other questions coming up, but in the interest of time, let's just very quickly wrap up. So yes, the replay and the slides will be sent back to everyone that's attended and registered. And absolutely, let's do this again, and let's give you maybe a one-on-one session around this, a deeper dive, a demo. Just feel free to drop us a note. So to the next couple of slides, Amit, if you wouldn't mind moving the slides for me, I just wanted to share some places where people can go for more information. So here's, it's a one-stop shop. It's a custom portal that we've developed, our team has developed for you. It's very easy to remember. As you can see in the yellow at the bottom, it's dataintegrationhub.me. Just remember dataintegrationhub.me, and it'll take you to this portal. It's a single email login, and that's it. And you get in, and you can see some demos, data sheets, and a lot more information around the technology. Of course, there are associated capabilities around other editions of PowerCenter that you can find on agiledataintegration.me. And as I said, drop us a note. We are happy to help and basically dive into this topic again or on a one-on-one. Any closing comments, Jeff or Amit?
There's one I can answer real quickly that came in, and the question was, does PowerCenter come with a data integration hub? And the answer is yes. So I'll just throw that in there real quick at the end. Sorry we missed that one.
Great. Thanks. Fantastic. So yes, so you can leverage this technology regardless of whatever additional PowerCenter you have, or as Jeff just mentioned. So let us know how we can help you, and let's keep the conversations going. So with that, thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. And again, thank you, Jeff, and thanks, Amit. And we will see you again on another Meet the Experts.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.